we have started.
Welcome, everybody, to the fifth episode of our stream. We are in season one currently, upon the topic of superheroes, and today we will be discussing the matter of power and responsibility. Uh, in the event that you are given powers, are you required? Are you responsible for the safety and well-being of others? This is the topic at hand today. I have uh, two debaters with me, Seeking and Virzu, and let's hear some opening statements.
Um, how are we going to decide who goes first?
I mean, tried and true, flip a coin, huh?
My favorite number's two, so I was gonna go second. Right. So
Works just as well.
Okay, fine. I'll go first. It is my position that if you are given powers, that you have a certain level, at the minimum level of responsibility to uh, give me one moment. I'm sorry. Somebody in the chat said that the guest is quiet. Maybe I can turn up your volume. Give me 1 second. Say something.
something, something else.
That's the best I can do. You might have to talk a little louder. Okay. Like I was saying, it is my take that if you get powers, you have some part of responsibility to help other people. Now, this largely narrows down to me in two paths. Either A, you have whether you're secular or you have religious beliefs. In both paths, I can explain how you have a responsibility to some extent to help the population if you get powers. If you are secular, you have a responsibility to save people because you have family, right? If you have family or friends or people that you just care about as a whole, you should want to help at the minimum the place you're at. And if it's a worldly threat, then that obviously affects the people closest to you, right? And so I think that that's the level of responsibility as far as secular beliefs. If you are religious, on the other hand, you have to help whoever it is. You have a moral obligation, in fact, to help in regards to if you get superpowers. That means that whatever deity that you worship, I would say most religions, I'm not an expert on most religions, but most religions would dictate that you have an actual responsibility to help people without powers, let alone if you had powers. And so that is my position.
I'm assuming it's my turn now.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it is my position that I personally believe that you having powers does not automatically mean you have to now become a superhero and utilize those powers. For starters, these are worlds where millions of people have powers. It's not just one person like in ours. There's not a sole savior. And thus, to have one person out of all these people now have to go and save the rest just because were born with powers, in my opinion, isn't necessarily fair or really a calling in that case, seeing how other people in this world also have powers. In addition to this, not everybody has a certain level of bravery in them to be a superhero. It is a thing that I feel like should we kind of take for granted based off of the superheroes we see in media, but not everybody has that built into them. You can have powers and not have the mindset to go face first into danger, to fight fields of enemies and jump into explosions trying to save people. It's something that we see other people doing, like, oh man, I would do that. But when you're actually there, just because you have power doesn't mean you can actually do it. And so that's kind of my position that I'm going to be arguing for this debate.
All right. Well, I guess we'll just do kind of a free flowing back and forth, unless it gets a tad heated, in which case we'll go into 2 minute increments of talking. That sounds good.
Fine by me.
All right then. Let me gather my thoughts for a minute. Not an actual minute.
If it's all the same to you, I think it's best that we start by defining what do we mean by calling to be a superhero, and also what do we mean by powers.
That's a good question. The reason I say power, we have to talk about the level of power, right? I'm not saying, oh, I have the ability to create soap bubbles. You you don't have any responsibility. The
Say
whole
that to the Mizusune, but continue.
well, the Mizune test more than just bubbles, right? He can also shoot jet stream water, and it's a dragon, so it's a little bit different. You're a person, a flimsy person, and so if you just can create soap bubbles or something stupid, right? Like something like for some reason, like I'll give you an example in Invincible. I don't think that Duplicate should be a superhero.
Okay.
Her power is just to clone herself. Useful, very useful. She could do a lot of community service. She can help people. Hell, it might even be she could. I'm not saying everybody should, but you could like join the military. You might be useful or something of
So,
those lines, but not super.
so in this instance of the argument that we're discussing, is people or someone like Duplicate still obligated to use her abilities as a service, or can she still go into a normal work field? Can she
Um,
say, "Hey, I want to be a nurse," or does she, because she has superpowers, now, oh, you have to do something else?
I don't think it has to be grand, but I think that if you have the ability to help more people with your ability, you should.
Now, my only thing with this is I feel like a lot of this would make sense, and I would agree with you if it was a world like ours where there was nobody with superpowers. But in worlds like Invincible or like Marvel with the X-Men or in My Hero Academia, you have large groups of people with superpowers. Now, yes, they're ranging in ability, but I don't think everybody with a superpower has to go into a service or help related field or even become a superhero just because they have a power when you're in a world with people with powers.
Now, that's why, as I said, it really depends on your level of power, right? Now, I'm not saying, even in our world right now, even if we were to have people with superpowers or not have people with superpowers, you still have a certain level of. Now, like I said, this all comes down to your moral structure. from a secularist point of view, you don't have any responsibilities whatsoever, really. You just exist. You have no moral system, to be honest, if you're secular. However, if you are religious, then you have responsibilities to help at the minimum the people around you. So if you don't help the people around you, then you're living contradictory to whatever religious religion you believe in. And so if you had powers, I think it only just goes up slightly. It's like the difference between being poor and helping somebody and being rich and helping somebody. You can obviously help a lot more people when you have a lot more money. But if you are poor, then you help people a lot. You can't help as many people, but you could still, pitch in a little bit.
But then you kind of, I understand what you're saying about this moral obligation of helping people, which, yes, still stands. But I don't think necessarily because you have powers, you can actually use those powers to help people. I believe that in instances of, let's say, you're a superhero, or let's say you have powers, you may not use those powers on a day to day to then go out and say, hey, let me, um, go fight people on the streets, or let me go lift this rubble. It's like, it's not necessarily a thing that you're utilizing on the day to day to really hone it enough to be used in that manner.
So you're talking about your level of ability.
Right. Because just because you are born with great power doesn't mean you utilize that power in a way. There are
Yeah,
plenty of people who are born with the ability to sing, but if you don't train your voice or practice singing, you're not going to ever be, Whitney Houston.
well, not everybody who has great power necessarily needs to be trained to like Captain America levels of like using ability. Some abilities are inherent. Like I don't know how much training you think Superman did when he first got his powers and was just kind of using them, but he didn't like, oh man, I gotta like learn how to fly precisely and then go around. Like every Kryptonian that came to the Earth kind of just figured that out pretty quickly, damn near within
I
like days.
I mean, that is true. I guess it does depend on the power because Superman didn't, but as we've seen with like Mark from Invincible, he did have to get trained by his dad. He didn't know how to fly. And he was wobbling and and kind of going all over the place when he started.
That's true. But then again, also, if you look at anybody who's gotten their powers by accident, now some people did need work because they're kind of doing extra. Like Spider Man had like a lot of extra training because he had great like physical strength and everything like that. But a lot of his more like learning on the job. I don't think he learned a physical martial art. But well, not initially, anyways. But
Well, I
you remember the Into the Spider Verse where like he had to jump off the building to kind of learn,
yeah,
to kind of like learn how to swing from the web and everything like that. That's a little bit. There's that, but then like I said, like for example, let's just say the Flash, right?
mhm.
The Flash, I don't think initially, like what training did the Flash have to do to run quickly?
I mean, I don't think I don't not I'm not that familiar with the Flash, but I wouldn't imagine a whole lot to run. But you know, when you have things like the Flash, but let's say, for instance, like 11 from Stranger Things, she knew how to use her abilities innately with her telekinesis, right?
Right?
But she still had to train her abilities to be able to move heavy things. So it's like you can learn and know how to use your abilities innately, but to use them to the extent of where you're obligated to now stop greater threats, you would have to train them, is kind of where I'm coming from.
And now here's the thing. Let's just say you have really great power. right? Let's just go with. I think we may have discussed this before. You have Superman's powers, right? If
Mhm.
you have Superman's powers, regardless of whether you train or not, and a great threat came about that other heroes could not stop, you have an obligation to go stop it if you can.
I don't think that is true because for two main reasons, well, three. I would say reason A is that personally, if your abilities, and I believe Frogirl said this in the chat, if your abilities are untrained and you do not have a certain level of expertise in those abilities, you going into these high tension and pressure situations could cause more harm than good. Take, for instance, Scarlet Witch. She has great, incredible powers, but is not mentally stable. And her going into certain situations without having a certain level of training, she could have easily done more harm than good on the battlefield.
That doesn't matter, depending on the level of threat, and I'll tell you why. From a religious standpoint, you're doing more sin, I should say, I guess, by not doing anything than if you were to go in and do damage, right? Because let's say, for example, this is a great example. I'll use One Punch Man, right? In One Punch Man, a meteor was coming down. Nobody could stop the meteor. They tried as they might. Some people just didn't have that level of ability to stop the meteor. Some people who could stop the meteor wasn't in the area. Maybe they were like on the other side of the planet or something, saving other people. But there was a meteor coming down. The meteor was going to hit the planet so hard that it was going to damn near destroy half of it. It was like a dinosaur ending level of meteor. Saitama was the only person who could destroy the meteor. He went and he jumped up and he broke the meteor apart, which slowed the momentum a great deal, and it also divided it into manageable chunks. However, the chunks of the meteor struck the earth and destroyed some cities. You still did a good thing, especially from the Christian perspective or the religious perspective, because you stopped a bigger mess compared to your smaller mess. It's the same thing with most superheroes. If a big threat comes to the city and you damage the city while saving it, it's still better than if you had just let the problem run rampant.
Okay. I I can see that and I can understand where you're coming from, but because of the worlds we are discussing and talking about, I think we need to further draw the line of when something is considered a gift and thus you are ordained or obligated to use it, or something is just something that you have. Because, for instance, with powers, you have multiple ways people can obtain powers. You have people who are born with powers, or races who have better abilities than others, like aliens or mutants who are born with these abilities. You have people who learn these abilities or have accumulated items to kind of give them these abilities, like, you know,
Blue Beetle
uh,
or something.
yeah. And then you have people who were in accidents and then got these abilities by accident. And those are like the Spider-Mans and the Fantastic Four. In most of these cases, I don't think that you're necessarily obligated to use these abilities in this sense, especially if you were got these powers by accident. In no circumstance do I think that Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, the Hulk, or anyone who got those powers in similar situations are obligated to use those powers when they had a life before, and they shouldn't have to now give up what they were already doing just because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time.
If I may, uh, I'd like a little more clarity from Sea King regarding the training conversation. Um, for example, if there were a guy who got a power in which he could adapt and learn uh, through dangerous situations, let's say he could be Superman one day, that level of strength, but he would need to actively go out and stop crime to accrue that power over time. Would that affect his level of responsibility?
Here's the thing: if in that particular scenario that you just posed, I think it depends, because does he know that he gets stronger after every battle?
Yes.
Then yes, he still has a responsibility, because if he knows his power level of growing is damn near infinite, if you can turn into Superman, right? Then that means that you still have a certain level of responsibility if you know that ability. Let's talk about this for a second, because I've heard people in the chat and I've heard this dude talking about training. I'm not gonna even entertain the idea that if you got powers, you wouldn't learn how to use them, whether you're gonna use them for people or not. It makes no sense. You're telling me if you woke up tomorrow and you had powers, I'm not saying as soon as you get your powers, you have to go out there and save the world. That's not the argument I'm making. I'm saying if you got powers, you are going to learn how to use your powers. It doesn't matter to what degree you learn how to use your powers, but you will learn how to use them just by having them.
I will say that I agree with you partially, but not fully, because I do agree that everyone will learn how to use their powers, but how you learn to use them greatly, um, I would say, definitely decides what level your ability is at. Because let's say I'm going to go back to telekinesis with like 11 or Jean Grey or whoever. Telekinesis is an ability that everyone knows is strong. Everyone has seen it in every form of media. We know it's powerful. But it is one of those abilities to where it is a matter of control and then also strength. You can have someone who if I got telekinesis tomorrow, let's be honest, I'm gonna use it lazily. I'm gonna turn the light switch off. I'm gonna get my remote, get my food from the microwave, but I'm not going. And yes, that will let me learn these abilities, but at most, it will just give me better control. I will have precise movements with my telekinesis, but I'm not going to be able to go out and stop these major threats that you're saying I have a calling to stop because I've never increased the power of it to lift heavy things or crush um heavy things or put things under pressure. You know what I mean?
That's a fallacy that I think that a lot of hero movies and TV shows do, that I don't think is real. There is no, this isn't a muscle, it's a power. Now, you, like I said, you, level of control is one thing, but you don't increase power. The power is there. Like flying, for example. How do you make flying stronger? No, you can't. You just fly, right? Or you could fly faster, but there is no actual like thing that you train flying for that'll make flying better. You either have
Now,
it's like hold on. It's like well, it's like what Yoda said. Believe it or not, you haven't gotten to this, but it's a very famous quote you've probably heard. Do or do not. There is no try. It's because the power is already there. Just because you don't believe that it's there does not make it true. That's the biggest barrier that people have, is that their own belief. They don't believe that they can do certain things. But all you actually need to train is the control.
I agree with you, but that's why you do have to train because, like you said, it's about belief. People do have to train their powers. Their powers, yes, are innate and it's always within them, but it's not necessarily training your power, it's attuning to your power. It's understanding the source of the power and how to utilize it. Take, for instance, benders. from Avatar: The Last Airbender. They all have the power of bending. It's just understanding it and then attuning that to yourself and realizing how you then translate that. You have people who can use their power greatly through anger, like Zuko and Azula at the beginning. But then you also have people who then learn and understand the power from a different perspective, and then they gain a new access to it, like Toph with the earth bending. So yes, that power is always there, but you still have to train and attune to it to gain an understanding of how to build it in your own body, whether that's emotionally, whether it's actually a source of power like the Speed Force or the Force from Star Wars. You still have to attune and understand it. That's what the training is.
I don't think it takes a certain level of, even if you not. I'm not saying you. Okay, let me calm down. You don't have to master your abilities to be helpful, and you don't. And depending on the level of threat, hold on for a second. In the chat, Magneto had to train. You still need to learn how to visualize the ability. Mentally, it's hard to change. I understand that, but here's the thing: you don't need to be. You don't need the 100% mastery in order to save people, especially if your life of you or the life of others were directly in danger. That's the biggest thing I'm talking about, right? Now, in a society where you have a bunch of superheroes, again, like I said, you still have certain level of responsibility to just help out locally, right? Like, I'm saying if it's in front of you, I'm not saying go out of your way to put on a mask and tights and then fly off into the sunset. But let's just say, for example, you have telekinesis, right? You've used your telekinesis to do mundane things around the house. You you being male, I'm sure that at some point in your whole life that you've had this power, or even if you acquired it recently, you've used it for more than just lifting brownies out of the oven. You could use it for other things like, there's these heavy things that I don't want to have to physically pick up. Let me try it out. So you roll your car forward, or you pick up some logs, or something like that. So you have a rudimentary understanding of how your ability works. And so you're walking down the street, and you see somebody mug an old lady's purse. They run up, they punch the old lady in the face, they grab her purse, and they start to haul ass in your direction. Do you stop him?
Yes, that's called being a good Samaritan. That's not being a superhero.
Um, uh, There's no difference between a hero and a superhero besides power.
That is not true. Being a superhero is a when you're a good Samaritan or hero, your job is to just help people when you see them in need on a daily basis. So, for instance, if let's keep going with telekinesis, if that happened and someone was running towards me, you use your telekinesis to trip them and stop them. Or let's say we live in Florida, hurricanes happen. You may help somebody move a tree out their yard. Small stuff like that, that's fine. But when we're talking about you're obligated to a higher calling of being a superhero, you're now telling that person that's not enough. You have to now go and fight these aliens that are running down the street. And that is a completely different thing. To certain extents, you may even be drafted, like when you get into bigger plot points like the Avengers and stuff like that, where they're actively recruiting people.
Yeah,
I now have to say yes to join the Avenger program.
no. You don't have a responsibility to join anybody, or if nobody has a right to necessarily force you to use your powers. However, if the threat is big enough and you could stop it, I'm not saying you should try if you 100% will die, but you should have to try to help if you can. Now, let's say, for example, you've had your powers for a decade, right? You've just from using it normally throughout life, you have the same power of ability as a power and ability with your psychic abilities as Jean Grey, right? After 10 years of having them, if aliens came down and destroyed the city that you and your family live in, or started to destroy it, would you save the city?
Well, that comes to the biggest argument that I stated in my opening statement, which was that is a matter of someone's mental stability and bravery to go into that situation. I'm sure everybody in their mind and everybody sitting in their homes comfortably would want to say, yes, I would go save the it's like the save the world. It's like when you watch TV and you're like, oh man, if I was there, but in reality, there's a lot of people who physically do not have it in them to run into that type of danger. Whether you have the ability or not doesn't mean you can go in there.
Earlier, Virzu, you said that there were 3 points that you had as to why a person would be unobligated. You touched on one of them just now, which was that you could cause more harm than good. You might not be mentally stable. Not to put you on the spot, but do you have those other 2 points in mind?
That instance, we were talking about what specifically? Because I
Uh,
remember me saying that.
we were talking about why you would be unobligated to use your powers if you had them. Um, one of them being you could cause more harm than good, which is how we got into the training question. Um, like you brought up Scarlet Witch, that she was mentally unstable and going in and attempting to help causes a lot of problems because she isn't able to maintain her mental fortitude.
Yeah. I believe we have been kind of touching on them throughout. One of them was the um like actual ability to use your powers, which is what we were talking about during the training thing. One of them was the idea of if you have the bravery to go into these situations. Another one was the idea that if if I'm the final straw in potentially tipping this thing over, like if I'm the only person that can solve this issue or situation, then I don't think we are going to win in that situation. Which is which I can see how could be a pessimistic way of looking at it, but from my perspective, I see it as the Mark situation from Invincible, to where if Mark is the only person that can defend against this threat of Viltrumites, then Earth didn't stand a chance at winning anyways, if they're only going to rely on Mark.
That's foolishness. But I guess we'll get into that in a minute. Let's go back to my scenario, right? If Now here's the thing, I can't account for cowards, right? If you were a coward and you had powers, that's one thing. Then you can just be a coward. As long as you're okay with being a coward, that's fine and dandy. You had a responsibility and you failed because you were a coward. Now, the reason why I bring up that particular scenario is because you have stakes at that point in time in saving the actual city that you're in, right? Because now it's not just about you, it's about people you care about, it's about your family. If you're willing to let all those people die because you didn't want to even try, then you're just a coward.
I can see where you're going, but the thing is, you can't use cowardism in that situation of such high uh, tension and stress and emotion. You know what I mean? It's the thing of fight or flight. You know, everyone has it in them. Everyone has how they respond to these, you know, very high stakes situations. And whether you have powers or not doesn't change how you respond to that. You have the biggest people, super jacked, but they're not going to throw a punch because that's just not who they are or have it in them. You know what I mean?
It
And that's not to
depends.
say that and that's not to say that they're a coward, because obviously, if high emotions, things can change.
And
But
here's the thing, it depends on the situation. Now, let me give you a different scenario. I'm going to lessen it a little bit. And I think that you would agree with me in this particular case. Now, let me paint it for you. If, let's say, there was a tiger, right?
mhm,
And you're, let's say, I'm trying to think of a good example. Let's say there was a tiger and it was chasing your parents. And you didn't have powers in this particular situation. I'm just talking about bravery.
mhm.
So the tiger is chasing your parents. Your parents are able to shake them in order for them to get a good distance in front of the tiger. They run up to your door. They're banging on the door. They're like, please let us in, let us in. There's a tiger outside. And you open the door, and then behind them, you see the tiger. You don't open the door. You look out the window, and you see the tiger coming. And you say, oh no, the tiger. And you don't open the door because you're scared of the tiger. You're a coward.
Well, those are not the situations we're talking about. In that instance, yes, you can and should open the door for your parents. But what we're discussing as far as being a hero is, if the city's in danger, you're going to the city. Not it's the dangers in front of you. Are
No.
you defending
In
yourself?
my first scenario, you were already in the city. The city in which I said, in which you live and your parents and family live. And if aliens began attacking and you do nothing, let's just say you ran away. Oh no, aliens! And then you flee like let's say you fly away with your psychic powers. You're a coward.
I don't think you're a coward. Well, I'm not necessarily going to say they're a coward, but in that situation, what realistically would happen and what we would consider to whether someone should be a coward or not, or whether the moral obligation or not, is the city's under fire. You're in the city. Let's say, like Raccoon City, for example, with zombies. Everybody's losing their ish, everyone's fighting. Most people's obligation is to get their loved ones and get out. That's what most people go to. Find who you care most about and leave the situation and find safety with those people. That's what most people are going to do. So if you have powers and you say, okay, I'm going to go find my parents, my spouse, my kids, and grab them and go, then there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think you should be considered a coward, whether you have powers or not. But what we're saying is that if you have powers, not only are you supposed to get your loved ones, but you're now supposed to help other people and push back the threat.
I
And I don't think you have to do that if you have powers.
I think again, like I said before, I think we've established that if you have your powers are not great, you don't have that necessary level of responsibility because at a certain point it just becomes suicide. You do not have to die for the sake of a bunch of people, especially if you know you're not going to win, right? It all depends on whether or not you can win with your power, and it depends on, like I said, your level of power as a whole. So let's say like I said, you have Jean Grey level ability with your psychic powers,
Mm.
and a threat comes down. Like let's just say it's an alien ship, and they come down and they like start blasting, and you go and you get your family. You go up to your family, you lift them all with psychic powers, and you flee. That to me is cowardly. Because with Jean Grey's powers, you could definitely stop one alien ship. Now I'm not talking about the ship is like, oh my god, it blot out the sun. I'm talking about like a flying saucer.
Well, I understand that you have the ability to do something, but you have to take into account how much someone has to fight within them to do it. Now, you can call it cowardly, and if you want to call it cowardly, then we can agree that that person is a coward or a cowardice. But at the end of the day, you can't muster up the courage to do something that you in your brain can't find the courage to do. If there's an alien ship and you have the powers of Jean Grey, no matter what you say to that person, if that person cannot fathom the idea of going there. There are people today who can't, who have traumas, who have anxiety, who have whatever, and they can't even have the urge or find the ability to leave their house. So you then want to take some of these people and people to now go say, hey, you have to go fight an alien ship. It's not going to work for them. It's not going to happen. They're more likely to faint on the way there than actually fight the UFO.
Look, let me say something. Bravery is not the absence of fear. I would make the argument that you fear would have to be present in order for bravery to actually be a thing. Bravery is when you are afraid, but you do it anyways because you know that it helps people. So your fear level is not necessarily what matters. What matters is that you can save people. You can help people. Just because you're afraid doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have that responsibility. Now, everybody and their grandma, you can sit there and talk to me about how everybody has anxiety, this, that, and the other, but that doesn't change the fact that people are in danger, and if you have the power to help them, you should. That's the whole point of this debate, is that you should help people if you have that ability. So let's change the scenario slightly. Instead of Jean Grey's powers, let's ramp it up a little bit. Same scenario, but now you have Superman's powers, all of his powers, and you also have all of his ability. Do you just save your family, or do you stop the aliens?
Um, Again, that's simply just a matter of that person and what their courage level is.
I'm talking
We can't.
about you.
You could have the me personally.
Yes, I'm not talking about
If
a
I
random guy
if
with a bunch of variables I don't know.
Me
You.
personally, no, I'm not going there. If you want to talk about me, I'm grabbing my family, grabbing my loved ones, and we're leaving. You could not pay me with Superman's powers to go. First of all, you're talking about a right to me. If I have Superman's powers, I'm not being a vigilante. So I'm not going out fighting people, throwing punches. So I'm already don't have that dog in me to now sit here and go fight people. And now you see an alien threat, and I'm supposed to now muster up the courage. Now, I will say if the alien was in front of me and my parents and my loved ones and whoever else, and me and the alien are like face to face, like they're in my face so much where our eyelashes are braiding together, then yes, I'm a Swain. Because at that point, it's do or die, and that's just a matter of like adrenaline.
Yeah, but
But if the
listen.
alien threat is coming and I have a chance to leave, I'm leaving.
Yeah, but listen. You have to realize something, that that is the situation. You always don't know where your family is. The only thing you actually know is that your friends and your loved ones are in the city. It would be real cool to act like you knew exactly where all those people are, but all you know is, dang, an alien is coming down. They're not like breathing on your face and your eyeballs are getting condensation, but you can see that they're right above the sky, they're right above you, and they start blasting people. And you have Superman's powers. With Superman's powers, you could fly up, grab the UFO, and throw it into the sun. But because you're like, man, fuck that. I'd rather just I'd rather scour the city for my family while they could also be dying at the same time, and then run.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do.
That's cowardly.
If there's an alien in the sky and they're coming down and they're spreading through the city, my adrenaline says, okay, first things first, I gotta find my family. Especially, God forbid, if you're a parent and you have kids, you're finding your kids. So you're gonna go to your house, you're gonna go to the school or job, depending on who you're trying to find. And if you can't find them at those three places where you know they would be, your best bet is to, as a person with my thinking, is to find a place where you can be safe. And after this whole thing happens, like everybody else, you deal with the aftermath when it comes. But I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I can't find my family. Time to go stop the threat. I'm not doing it.
But you
I'm
have
sorry.
the ability. That's the thing.
I don't care.
You should care. You're telling me that in your mind, it's easier for you to scour the city and I guess, like Frogirl said, use your cell phone maybe. But then again, what you're not realizing is that missiles and lasers are already descending upon the earth in your city. So you calling people doesn't it sound like a very viable strategy when you could look up. I mean, with your eyeballs, look up and laser the thing in half. That's all you actually had to do. You have Superman's powers. You don't have to go up there and physically touch it. You can just, like, as easy as it is to look up and then flick your eyes, the spaceship's in half. And then it's just in half. That's how powerful you are.
Yeah, but that's the thing, Nate, is it's very nice to say that from a place of safety.
My name is Sea King.
But okay, sorry, but it is very easy to say that from a place of safety. But when you are in a high pressure situation, you are stressed and dangerous, and there are a million things running through your head. No matter how powerful I am, I'm not going to say that or think in my brain, let me put myself in danger when my goal is to get me and my loved ones to safety. That is never going to be a thought that passes my brain, especially in the consideration of what you're saying. If I do laser the thing, or if I do go and fight people, or whatever the situation is, I'm now not only, yes, I may have saved the day that one time, but now there is a target on my head. And whether that target is from future invasions, the government trying to figure out who is this kid who's been hiding this entire time. I'm not, and I believe Frogirl said this earlier, powers are to myself. If I have powers, I'm not telling nobody. So there's no way I'm now going to sit here and reveal myself and start trying to save people, knowing good and well this not only maybe saves the day for right now, but changes my life forever and possibly still puts me in a place of danger even after this threat is passed.
Look, everything you just said makes a certain level of sense and is totally agreeable if you're a villain.
Then call me a villain.
Yeah, because that's what you are. You're a villain at that point. You're willing to let people die because from what I understand, inconvenience.
No, it's not about letting people die. It's not about inconvenience. You're looking at this from a place of why didn't they do that? Why didn't they do this? You can, why don't you? But you have to look at it from a place of, am I willing to jump into this danger?
Fumbles,
That
that doesn't
that
make
is
any goddamn sense. Not a lick. But I'm sorry for interrupt you. Go ahead.
What?
He said that makes Kratos a villain. I'm like, what the fuck does it have to do with anything? We're talking about. I don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Well, all I was pretty much going to say is pretty much what I said previously. Is just we have to look at it at a point of you're at a place, you're at two paths. You could go down one path and you know for sure that path is dangerous. There's a don't go here sign, there's a pitfall traps, there's fire, but you know that if you take this road, everybody else will be safe. And then you have the path that is peaceful and you can't take everybody with you, but you know that you and maybe a good portion of people will be safe, but not everybody. Not everyone has it in them that certain level of self-sacrifice to say, I'm gonna go down this dangerous road to save everybody else by myself.
It's not even necessarily about self-sacrifice. I gave you a scenario where defeating the aliens would be not only well within your ability, but would be a breeze, and you could technically keep your if you know how to do it, you could keep your identity a secret. But you said, man, I'd rather not even bother because it could be a hassle for me later. I will leave the aliens, grab my family, and let everybody else die.
In my brain, if and I said this briefly previously when Flair had asked me about my other reasonings. If I'm the only person that can stop this threat, we was gonna lose anyways. And you may be like, oh, well, that's a terrible way of looking at it. But in a real situation, let's say with this UFO that I could just, and it's dead. This is a world because we're talking about the worlds of superheroes. We're talking about the worlds of Marvel and DC and whatever else. These are worlds with very high powered people. That threat may have been small, but there will be other threats that are bigger. And putting yourself in a place to where you're now the center of it, they're going to now go to you first. And if I'm the only person that can stop all these bigger threats because y'all couldn't handle a UFO that I could, then you guys weren't going to survive anyways. What if there's a problem in halfway across the country in China? What was y'all finna do?
I'm not talking. See, what you just said makes sense if it wasn't the exact scenario I gave you. The problem is, I'm talking about whether or not the danger is directly in front of you. What you just said about, oh, if I'm the only line of defense, then it wouldn't matter, doesn't matter. Because I'm talking about immediate danger right in front of you. So it's like, oh, well, I don't have any kind of responsibility. I'm just going to let everybody die. Doesn't make sense on a grand scheme. You could literally just be anonymous man if you fucking wanted to. Like, I'm not saying you have to be a superhero, but people don't have to know who you are and to stop immediate danger. And it kind of extrapolates a little bit from what I was talking about the purse snatcher. If somebody comes, if you could stop the purse snatcher, you'd be like, oh, that's just being a good Samaritan. For your level of ability, it's the same damn thing. You can look up, and you're a good Samaritan because you saved thousands of lives with the flick of your eyeballs. And what? You're worried the neighbors are going to be like, I think I saw that guy fucking, shoot lasers. Now the government's coming. Like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. You're assuming the worst, which is what people who are afraid just do. If you used your brain a little bit, you would see that all you had to do, you could go inside the house, put on a pillowcase, laser some eye holes out if you wanted to, fly up above the spaceship, and then fly back down, and then just in time for your hot pockets to come out the microwave. Like, it's that simple for you, but you're like, I think I don't want the government to know who I am, and what if they ask me for help again? So I think I'll let thousands, if not millions, of people die, and I'll just grab my family and dip.
The thing that you're missing, and at that point, I don't know, but you're speaking, I'm speaking of a place of in the moment, while you're speaking of a place of third perspective or even hindsight, to where yes, what you're saying is 100% correct. I agree with you. You can do all those things. But in the heat of the moment, you're in a high pressure situation. And we can go, and I believe Frogirl said this at one point, to where she said, I could have all the power in the world, but if there's a spider in my house, I'm not killing it. It's that level of high pressure situation. When you're in a high tense stress situation where you are afraid, your brain throws everything out the window. You're not thinking about logic and what you can or couldn't do. You are in a fight or flight situation. And technically there's more than that. I believe it's fight, flight, freeze, or like faint, I think the fourth one is.
I'm not sure.
And
Mod, can you?
I'll look into it.
All right, thank you.
And in those high sense situations, you're doing one of those things. So you're talking about the group of people that is 1/4 of the four that are fight. Those are the people that are going to do what you're saying. But I'm talking about the 3/4 of people that are running away because they're scared. They're freezing because they can't fathom what's going on right now, or they're fainting because they just fell out. Whatever it was too much for them.
I'm going to make the argument that if you have ability, I'm sorry, Green Queen just said something that made her a villain. So Green Queen's a bad guy. She said, I would laser everyone, good or bad. I'm like, so you're a bad guy. So that's fine if you're a villain, just say that. That's that's the most wild shit. I can look down and just read. But I didn't expect that to say that. All right, and there's a moral obligation, but the actual outcome may be what the guest is talking about. Now, here's the thing. Okay. That's what you're talking about. If there was, so, so there's a spider in your house. They're just killing everybody in your house. Because first things first, I'm gonna say something, and I need you guys to all hold on to your socks. Why are we making the assumption that anybody who gets powers is a pussy? First things first, I don't like spiders. Right? I like spiders in concept. I watch a lot of spider videos and stuff like that. I actually like spiders. But if a spider was in my room, I'd be like, oh shit, because I just don't want them in my vicinity. However, if I had demigod-esque powers, and there's a spider in my room, it could be a spider the size of a Dalmatian, and I would not give a fuck. Because at that point, if you had your powers for 10 years, right? And you have Superman's powers. You've had Superman's powers for 10 years. In 10 years' time, you know that there's not a damn thing, really, that can hurt you. You've had accidents. You've grabbed things out of the oven with no gloves. You've may have been hit by a vehicle and realized, oh damn, I didn't feel that at all. You've went to go get shots at the doctor and the needles can't even pierce your skin. Like, you haven't been sick in a decade. You know, in 10 years' time, that with Superman's powers, you're basically a demigod. If a spider is in my freaking room, like I said, it could be the size of a Dalmatian. and it fazed me, especially if I know I can just listen to just the idea of you having that level of ability. I don't believe you would be a coward. Like
I
there's a certain level. That's the thing that you're not factoring in is that your level of confidence with godlike ability.
That being said, it was fight, flight, freeze, and flop. And I believe that Virzu brought something up pretty relevant that I believe Fumbles in the chat is petitioning for, which is these are matters of instinct response, um, which I can personally see the validity to, but hey, I'm not the one arguing. Um, that being said, though, I think that poses a question, which is on the moment that you figure out about your powers, or let's say 5 years down that 10-year line, there needs to be a question you ask yourself, which is, what will I do with these powers? A quiet moment in which you can not be weighed down by your instinctual responses. And I'm curious to see what Virzu would come to the conclusion about in that quiet moment.
Before he answers that question, can I ask? Can I say something?
Of course.
What Fumbles just said does not necessarily. The reason why people and elephants are afraid of things that are much smaller than them is because they have a perceived danger about that thing. The reason why, not necessarily just because they look scary. Now, here's the thing that is also technically true that certain things can look scary, but the reason why people and elephants are both afraid of something so much smaller than them is the perceived danger, especially the danger of the unknown. You don't know what that thing is, and as a human, you're like, that thing could bite me. It could kill me. It could be poisonous. It's the fear of the unknown and the fear of perceived danger. So that's why you're afraid of spiders. Because, oh no, if the spider bites me, I know what spider bites have done to other people. So I don't want to get bit by a spider and die. Or I don't want to get bit by a spider and have to go do some crazy crap. But if you have a decade of being Superman and needles couldn't pierce your skin, what is a spider gonna do? If give you the creepy crawlies when it gets on you? Like I said, it's not doing anything to you. You could be shot and it wouldn't do crap to you. What is a slightly bigger spider gonna do? Especially when you actually don't even have to get close. You could turn that Dalmatian spider into a pile of ash. Actually, you could
um
freeze it. You could burn it. You could you could cut your hands and it would implode.
I will say that I see where you're coming from. I'm gonna briefly touch on what Seeking said, and then I'll answer Flair's question. I do agree with the idea that yes, these things are perceived as fearful, but you know that they can't do anything to you. But I don't think that necessarily would stop someone from being scared. Because even, for instance, let's not consider spiders. Let's consider mice, for example.
Mm-hmm.
People have seen mice. Mice, for the most part, aren't threatening. No one has died from a mouse outside of like diseases that they might carry. But even then, it's like, that just depends on the time you're living in. If it was in the time of the Black Plague, then sure, be scared. But for the most part, there's no reason to be afraid of a mouse because they're small, they can't really kill you or hurt you. But I have fully walked in rooms and not even seen, heard a mouse, heard the little scurry, and said, I'm not going to go in there. I've been fully hungry, starving, didn't eat all day, walked in the kitchen, heard a mouse, said, I'm good, went right to bed, didn't eat. I'll go catch up tomorrow. But but as far as what Flair says, um, I believe that halfway through that period of 5 years, most people would want to find a way to utilize their powers. And I do believe that most people would want to help, similar to what Seeking has been saying. And but I think what we kind of have to get to a point is that most people would break out of the one way of doing it, which is superhero, and find other ways to help. For instance, you have obviously the avenue of becoming a superhero and fighting bad guys. But if you're a healer, you could go into the medical field and try healing. Or I'll give you the example of Adam Eve, where she had very good powers of being able to create things on an atomic structure, like through molecules. And she was at first fighting superheroes, but she decided that she didn't feel like she was actually using her abilities the right way. And so she decided to start doing humanitarian work. If there was a lack of food in places, she would help grow farms with her powers. She would go and help rebuild certain things that have been abandoned for a long time, rebuild parks and stuff like that. And so I think we kind of have to say, yes, if you have powers, depending on, especially if you have very strong powers, you are obligated to help. I do believe that from just a moral or religious standpoint, yes. But I don't think based off of your strength of powers, you are obligated to now go and fight threats. That is a different lane that I think you have to be mentally prepared for, and you're not mentally prepared for that through powers.
Um, Here's the thing. This is all about, like I said, this whole debate is about morality, right? Whether you can or you can't, it's about morality, right? Let's now. I'm gonna concede that if you can't help, you don't have to help, right? If you, let's just say you're, like I said, if you're the guy who creates bubbles and soap, and you can help people slip out of like tight spots, or you're the best dishwasher in the universe, or maybe you just have like, bubble fairs where you entertain kids, like you have bubble circuses. That's fine and dandy. Do whatever you want with your freaking powers, because if a grand threat comes, then you have no real ability to help that person. But from a moral standpoint, now let's get down to the nitty gritty. If you have a certain level of ability, you have an obligation to, if even if it's try, like you don't even have to have, you don't have a moral obligation to succeed. You have a moral obligation to try if you feel like you stand even a slight chance. Now let's talk about this. I'm gonna try to go through this via secular belief, and I'm gonna go through this via religious belief, right? From a secular standpoint, you have no obligation to do anything ever because you have no real moral grounding, right? All of your morals are pretty much stolen, and it's just personal belief. There's no great, from a secular point of view, there is no one belief that is greater than another belief. So everything is subjective. So Nazis. Oh shit! I don't think I should say that because, but sorry, I forgot about TOS. I don't think I can say that. Oopsie daisy. Um, the bad guys in World War II, their morals are no greater than anybody else's morals to a secularist because it's all based off personal opinion. It's all subjective. Now, from a religious standpoint, do you believe in a religion, Verzu?
Yeah.
Then, from a religious person's standpoint, you are obligated, if you have power, to help others. If you can, like I said. So, and that's the thing, you don't even have to succeed. Just the act of trying in of itself, and that's the thing that you have to realize from a religious standpoint, succeeding or failing does not fall on you. If you go up and you tried and you failed, from a religious standpoint, that doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't weigh on you negatively because that means that without your intervention, the shit was going to be doomed anyways. So, but just you trying in of itself makes you on the morally upstanding. So
I Are you finished? I'll let you
yeah,
finish
I'm
your
good. I've kind of gone on long enough. Go ahead.
I will say I can see where you're coming from, and I do somewhat agree, but I believe that is a very slippery slope you can get yourself down into because that is a thing of perceiving what a higher power or entity, if we're talking religiously, anyways, has set for you. It is great that we have this power. It is great that we have these gifts or whatever they are, but we don't know what they're for. We don't know when the time will come to where we need these abilities or this thing that we're destined to be. So if I have powers, I'm not going to run into danger knowing that to me, I know I can't handle that myself in that situation. So my God, I know he's not gonna put me in that situation. He knows I'm not gonna go do that. So why would he set me up to go do that? That's for some that's for somebody else.
Listen,
I'm not
no.
gonna sit here and be I'm not gonna sit here and
Do
be
you
like,
know better? Do
oh,
you know better than God?
I don't know better than God, but God knows me better.
No, that's the thing. No, that's the thing. You, who are you to? Here's the thing. You don't know. God knows you better than you know you. You think in
Mhm.
your mind, man, I can't do it. I would be too afraid. I can't do this. Herb. But what you don't realize is that God knows you better than you know you. And if push comes to shove and he gave you these powers, he knows that when push comes to shove, I'm just saying in the event, right? Because I think that personally, if you have powers, if you had powers, your personality now would be different. I don't think it'd be the same. You wouldn't turn out the exact same way you did right now. If you were given powers, especially when you were younger and you had them for a decade, he knows you better than you know you. He knows, man, when the time comes, and he might be the hope of the universe, which is why I gave him Superman esque powers, right? I know that he will do the right thing when push comes to shove, and there are thousands or even millions of lives at risk. He will go up there and do it.
Now, let's say, right? Because that's what I mean by perceived
He gave you
is
fucking near invincibility. I think he's. I don't think he's putting you in a situation you can't handle when you can just laser the damn aliens.
listen,
Sorry, I'm talking about
listen.
Green Queen over here.
I believe in what Green Queen said. God doesn't put you in anything you can't handle. So the thing is is that let's say we're in a situation to where there is a major threat. This is a threat that only I perceived only that I can stop. I have to go and stop this threat. Let's say, like for instance, there's like some type
Can
of
we? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I have to say something real fast to Green Queen because she's over here saying wrong things, and I'm glad that you're in the chat and not on the call because that means that I can explain it to you without any interruptions. In the Bible specifically, it says that God does not put you in a situation that you can't handle. But you, as a normal human being, though, do not understand what you can or cannot handle until you've already been faced with that situation. So, that being the case, again, this seems like odd framing this argument. Even if this is true for the guest, what does it have to do with general population? I'm talking about
um
two different populations. There are two different populations within the world. There is secular, meaning you don't have religion, and there are religious, which means that you have a moral framing. Secular people do not have moral framings. And then,
okay, so I
um,
will disagree with you on that point. I do think we have to. I'm going to merge secular and religious because I think separating them isn't really needed for this argument. In my opinion, everyone is just born whatever a certain way and are raised through whatever mediums to kind of form their certain level of understanding and emotional IQ per se. But I do believe that most people are born compassionate or em- compassionate or empathetic. Most people can read and kind of gauge emotions, and that's why most people try to help in times of need. If someone is having a hard time with something, it is a natural thing where most people try to help. That is just innate. But I think the issue that we're kind of coming up with is that as strong as that emotion is, we have to account for the emotion of fear, which in my opinion is one of the strongest emotions, and it will overpower a lot of other ones. Now, as far as this calling goes, I do believe that everyone has a calling, and I do believe that if you have powers, you are probably destined to use it for something in your life. However, my different for you is I'm not, if I had powers, I'm not going to run into danger and do some grand sacrifice to save people or whatever the situation is, knowing that I wasn't meant for that. And there might be something later down the line that I am meant for, and I just have to wait for it. That might not be for me. That might be for somebody else. I'm not gonna run towards that. That don't look like it's my door to walk through. I don't even like that color of wood. Why would I go through that
Let's
door?
take it. Okay, then let's take it away from you for a second. If you no, because no matter what, I think that the way that most people, especially just regular human beings as a whole, they can't separate a situation from themselves in a way. They will always bring it back to, well, if that was me, then I wouldn't do that. Or if it was me, then I would run away. So I can't even separate it from you in a way. I don't think, because, so you're telling me, because here's the thing, I think you've already, to some extent, you've already kind of conceded to my point that and the viewpoint does matter. Your 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 morals are exactly what matters. It depends on, because your morals shape what you would ever do for the rest of your life, right? If you are secular, and Fro said it, um, she said something. If it doesn't mean that if you don't believe in God that you don't believe in morals. Yes, that's half true. Just because you're not religious or you don't believe in religion doesn't necessarily you have morals, but it's about the framework of your morals, where your morals come from. A lot of people, especially in the United States, they um, they take from Christian ethics, whether they believe it or not, because the Christian ethics are built into the laws, they're built into the Constitution, and all those other kind of things, and so they're basically just borrowing morals. But if you don't have a grounding in your morals, then there's nothing saying that your those morals mean anything, right? Like, let's say a Christian person says, "Thou shalt not kill," or else you know it's a sin and you go to hell. But if you don't believe in that, what's saying you shouldn't kill? There's no consequence, right? So you can end up just dying. If so, let's think. If you die, nothing happens. You all go into the void, and so you should basically just be like, oh well, I can do whatever I want to do because there's no consequence. And when you have a religion or anything like that, there's a consequence to your actions. But when you don't believe in anything, there's no consequence to no actions. It's all just preferences. oh, well, I prefer if you didn't kill people, even though there's no consequence for it, beyond what society may do to you. But there's no like greater consequence to not do that. That's the difference. Is greater consequence.
I believe what you're saying is true. However, I believe none of that has a foundation to stand on in the presence of fear. You can have a moral obligation, you can have a certain level of moral understanding when it comes to whether you're secular or religious. If you're religious, you could understand the Bible in and out and understand that you are called to do this thing. But in the presence of fear, it does not matter.
Well, here's the thing.
There's not many emotions that can overpower fear. I do believe the only emotion, and yes, this could be cheesy and corny, the only emotion that I do believe could overpower fear is love. And that's why in some cases I do believe people would fight for loved ones. Like if like I said previously, you see a lot of instances to where a mother gets in front of her kids in an intense situation and will fight an animal, will fight a bear. I just watched. I'm not gonna say it because I'll be spoilers.
Mhm.
But I just watched a TV show where a mother, stabbed a monster for her kid, and she didn't even know what was going on. So I do believe love can overpower that in some situations, but for the most part, fear is going to take over your body, and you're not going to be able to really think about your moral obligation no more.
Um, yeah, I see what you're saying. And fumbles, I just said that in the end of my diatribe. I also said that there's society consequences, but that's the thing, right? What if there's a society where killing's not bad? That's what you have to think about, right? Where it's like certain killings or certain things are just not bad. And don't say, oh, that would never happen. That couldn't happen. I can tell you a story about a small little society where it is perfectly, naturally, and a rite of passage to essay children. So
I'm
let's not
slightly
pretend like, oh, well, society, this, society. It depends on the society you live in. That's the whole point of the moral groundwork. In certain religions, I'll just say Christianity. In Christianity, that's not. We have a grounding in what is right and what's wrong. But if you have no moral grounding, then anything is okay based off of preferences of the people around you. So it's like if we all vote, right, as a society, that it's okay to hang the people over 60 years old, then there's no, then that's just based off society now. That's a rule that we could just do. We could just hang anybody who's 60 years old and older in society. But back to what you were saying in regards to like love, and that's the thing that you have to realize, Joanne, is like, or sorry, Verzi. Let's just say, because I'm trying to not wrap it up per se, but I'm trying to bring this all back to a central point. I believe what you just said is 100% correct, whether it sounds cheesy or not. Love is greater than fear. Most people, and I do mean most, have more than just a couple of people that they love. And they also have a certain level of a certain level of affection for their fellow man. And most people, and if you could, it's like I don't want to sit here and think of a scenario. And if you could save a bunch of people, you would, especially if you. And it's a vastly different thing to say. What the? Hold on. I'm sorry, Gusto. I don't know why they keep um not letting you post your emotes. But what was I gonna say? What was I saying? It's a vastly different thing to say without actually seeing. Oh, I wouldn't stop the killing and suffering of people if I could, because I'm worried about it. Versus you knowing that you like. Imagine for a moment you're flying up like above the city, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go grab my family, and you see. Now I know that you don't. I know you're not particularly fond of kids, but let's just say you see old people. I know you like old people. You see some grandmas trying to escape, and they fall, and they're like, "Somebody, please help me!" And you could. I think that there's something in your heart that would actually make you be like, you know what, this is happening, and that could be my mom, right? Like that's the whole point of empathy, is that man, that could be my mom somewhere, just like that person had that's somebody else's mom, and so that's the whole point of like moral obligation is that it could be you, it could be
I
somebody you
believe
love, and so you should help.
I'm going to disagree with you
Nobody said anything
only
about a giant
because
alien spider.
I'm going to disagree with you only from the standpoint of um, the height of the emotion. When I said that love is stronger than fear, and in those situations, you have to look at the height of when these emotions are. Fear is prevailing throughout most of the time, but the only time it's love is stronger is at its highest, which is why mothers are always seen defending their children. That's why they be sitting here boxing bears and they ain't never throw a fight in their life. But it's because they have to do what they got to do because at that point it's peaked. But in a situation to where I'm flying over and I'm trying to find my family, my my emotion for whatever else is not peaking over fear, especially because now, granted, we shouldn't use me as an example because I'm pretty cold-hearted. I fully have seen elderly people fall. They're all over at my job, fully fall right off the chair after being upset and just boom, and they fall hard when they fall.
I'm,
And
I'm not.
when I tell you glance and keep going, I don't.
That's first things first. That's a little bit different. I don't because I know where you work. I'm not going to say where you work, obviously, but people falling in that particular situation is not the same thing from an old lady fleeing from an alien invasion, and you could help and end it almost immediately, right? That's not the same thing as a drunkard who fell on the floor in a shitty place. So it's like it's not the same thing.
I understand, but I agree with you in the sense that most people and in a lot of situations you would try to help, but I definitely think that Life Alert is crazy.
Yeah, I just saw that too. They both need life alert. What's life alert gonna do? It's not like it's a direct. It's not like the bat signal. Like and then it's like Batman symbol in the sky.
But I do believe that most people would try to help, and I do believe that most people would want to. Obviously, you certain things tug on other people's heartstrings more. But I think, and at that point, I will agree that it really just depends on the person and the situation.
Right.
I feel like the closer you are or the people around you definitely influence how you're going to react in a situation. Um, but I think overall, my standpoint is yes, you should help, but I would never be mad at somebody for not helping because I know that they didn't ask for this to happen to them. You know what I mean?
Right. But
So I think that's kind of where I am.
yeah. But here's the thing. I agree with you, and I'm glad that you agree with what I said. And to an extent, I wouldn't necessarily be mad at them, but what you have to it's almost like and I don't want to talk too much. I know we've talked a lot about morals and religion and things of that nature, but I'm going to use an example of this because I can't think of an outly example. But it's like Jonah, right? In the Bible, Jonah was given a mission. to do something that he was well within his power to do, but he was afraid and he didn't want to do it. And so he ran and kept running until eventually he had to face what was like he had to face what like God had tasked him with. And I think that similarly, if you have ability and you could help people and you don't, ultimately that feeling will be worse for you than your fear at the time, knowing that you could have saved a bunch of people, that you could have done something to stop something, and you just chose not to. And does that make sense?
No, I agree with you. I do think that would definitely be a repercussion. A lot of, and that's the thing that happens today. A lot of people have, like a certain level of PTSD and trauma from not helping in, tied to situations where they think they could have or know they could have helped in that situation and didn't. So I fully agree with you that that would happen. But I feel like that's just a matter of, you know, I think that at that point, that's just kind of life. You know what I mean? You're gonna have regrets, and you're gonna have to live with those regrets. But I don't think that I'm going to now, rub salt in the wound of your regrets because you didn't help.
Yeah, I don't think that you should like kick them down or anything. And also, I really like what Gusto said. He said, "Life happens to you, or you happen to life. Neither are preferred, but to overcome is a task never completed. Those who have strength should." That's like perfectly worded.
So I think we're kind of at a similar point of yes, we think people should help, and we think that if you can help, it is definitely preferred and it would be nice. But you're not, no one's going to now shame you or, whatever because you didn't help. Because at that point, that's just a matter of your own personal volition of whether you had it in you to help or not. And if you didn't help, that's something that you would have to deal with, whether you feel guilt or not. But we're not going to now put something on you.
Well, I 90% agree with you. Now, here's the thing. I think that, like I said before, you have a moral obligation, technically, depending on your worldview, to help, but you cannot shame somebody for not succeeding. That's the biggest thing, right? Even if you help a little bit and you're like, man, why didn't you save the day and save all the lives and do this, that, and the other? You have no obligation whatsoever to make everybody happy. You have no obligation to succeed. It only matters if you tried. So if
I
you
understand.
go ahead.
I would say I fully understand what you're saying. And in a perfect world, they should try. But people aren't perfect. The world's not perfect. And like I said previously, in a high tense situation, you know, only there's a quarter. Well, now granted, this is, just saying out of the four options, a quarter of people are fighting. You know what I mean? But you still have the other three quarters that are flight, freeze, and I think, what did you say, flop?
Yeah,
I
flop.
like faint better. Flop sounds kind of harsh,
Nah, I like flop. You're a flop.
but you have these three other things that people are gonna fall into. So it's like in a perfect world, yes, they should, but knowing the world that we're in and knowing the people that are in this world, I'm not going to fault them for not trying, knowing that they may not have been able to.
That's the thing. I'm not. Which is I actually said that earlier in the debate. I don't think that you should be. You have no real responsibility in regards to doing anything perfectly. And like you said, in the perfect world, you should help, and that's all that necessarily matters. That you should, at the minimum, try. There's no blame on you if you don't succeed. There's no blame on you if you fail. I already said which is the same thing, but I'm just using different angles. If you don't save everybody, if it doesn't work out perfectly, none of that is on you. The only thing that matters is that you tried. And like Frogger was saying, even if it's as little as technically like helping people get out of the danger, as like let's say you just don't want to fight. You're like, I'm a pacifist. I don't want to fight. I'm worried about fighting. If you could save as many people as possible, though, that you still tried. Leading people, like you said, leading people out of danger is still a way of helping. So I would actually make that concession that if you were able to save people even though you didn't fight, that's good enough. But to not try anything or do anything and only worry about your own shit, that makes you, to me, a coward.
I At that point, that is kind of where I would have to differ because um at that point, I believe Fumble said it earlier to where it's like what I'm referencing as far as being able to is not what we want for anybody to happen. It's not, but it's just a reality of what happens. People freeze, people faint, people get scared and run away. There are plenty of storylines where, and not to say that just because they flee or faint or flop this time, they won't fight the next time, or vice versa. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, how they respond is how they respond, but we can't fault somebody for how they respond. That's just instinct. Your instinct is your instinct. And I can't fault somebody for instinct.
I actually think that's why if you ever look at people who have powers, and I'm not talking about in like My Hero Academia where like 80% of the population gets a power for the sake of having a power. I'm talking about traditional heroes where there's not a lot. There's a reason why in most societies there's not a lot of heroes. And it's because I think that whether you believe in a higher power or not, I think even the universe in of itself has a way of choosing people for those roles because they know that they can handle it. Almost like what Green Queen said, God does not give you more than you can handle. And so, if you were bestowed with these abilities by the universe, by God, Buddha, Zeus, or whoever you want to say, it's because you have something in you that would make you do the right thing. I think that when you have a lot of comics and stuff like that, where like, oh, I did the opposite or I turned out evil. It's I guess it's fun to think of alternatives, but when you talk about traditional heroes, traditional comics, things of that nature, those people were chosen for a reason.
I agree. I do believe those people were chosen, but part of that being chosen is not just a blanket of what your power is. It's not just power level, it's also who that person is. You have people like um let's say Batman who don't got the biggest powers in the world, but in a certain extent he technically is chosen because he has the mindset to be able to do the things that he does. I did not a whole bunch of research, but I briefly tried to see if there were people with powers who did not become superheroes. And the only thing I could come across was that there were mutants. There are a lot of mutants in the Marvel universe, and we really only see a handful of them between the X-Men and what is Magneto's side called? The
I
I don't remember.
don't know. My
But they have a name, I just can't remember.
On
But
it.
um so it's like, we only see those mutants, but there are, millions of mutants in that world that we don't see or don't hear about. And that's not to say that they don't have powers that are great in their own right. You know what I mean?
yes it does.
No, there could be mutants that have great powers and are stupidly strong. Never hear about them because they weren't picked for that. They weren't picked to go be an X-Men and fight Sentinels and
I'll tell you
You
why
know,
that doesn't necessarily work in X Men specifically, and it's because Xavier knows where all the mutants are, and he knows how strong they are.
The Brotherhood of Mutants.
oh
Thank you.
yeah, the Brotherhood. That's what they're called.
Thank you.
Alternatively, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, but I feel like that might be propaganda.
That is propaganda, definitely, because technically I don't think Magneto's evil. Magneto is, it's almost like the difference between Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, which is, I think, the actual parallel, is that you have a disenfranchised group of people. One people's trying to go about it peacefully. The other's like, why do we have to put up with bullshit? So it's literally the parallel of like Martin Luther King versus Malcolm X. Um, that being said, I think we've kind of come to somewhat of an agreement. But for the last few minutes, or like the last 10 minutes of the stream, I would actually like to incorporate the chat into some things. I'm going to start doing this from now on. And we'll kind of do like a, I don't know, if you guys have any questions or comments, we'll address the questions and comments in the stream.
I
So you guys have a little bit of participation.
I did see one from Fro Girl, that was like, we keep talking about, you should just try whether you succeed or fail, but it's like, what are we talking about when we say fail? Like, are we talking about dead, crippled, injured, which is obviously what goes through your mind when you're going face first into danger sometimes. It's like, okay, I'm not gonna do that if I'm gonna die. Like,
Well, that's the thing. I said earlier that you don't have to die for it, right? Um, Unlike there is a situation where you could, like there's no such thing as a guaranteed. Oh, I'm going to always survive and live forever, but like I'm not. You're not obligated to die for anybody really, but injury is fine. Crippled is like that's also a quality of life question. I don't think you need to be like Xavier crippled because you wanted to help some rando bando that will say thanks and then never like help you again. Like, I think that injury is probably the most you should get. And when I say injury, I don't mean life and limb. So you keep your body parts. So I just mean like it could be somewhat anything that's healable.
I have seen this kind of multiple times. I think someone also said it earlier, and Fro Girl just said it, but it was like the idea of overestimating your abilities, where it's like, oh, you have powers and you want to go help, but let's say in like you got the My Hero universe where you got people with like tape powers and and all this extra is that they're like, oh, I need to go help. It's like, at what point are you getting in the way? You know what I mean? Like, you go to the side. We don't need Waterboy from freaking Dispatch right now. Let's
I've never I've never played Dispatch or seen Dispatch. We were supposed me and some friends were supposed to do that together, but so I don't know anything about Dispatch yet.
Allow me
I've been
to speak
avoiding.
for you in this situation, then, Seeking. Don't you ever talk crap about Waterboy again, or I'll come into your room.
I picked Waterboy. I chose him and I trained him from the ground up. Waterboy was the baddest person on my team. It was him and Prism. So
Hey,
trust
hey,
what I
hey, hey,
say.
hey! That, I've done a good job of avoiding spoilers, and I will
It's not a
not,
spoiler.
and I will
It's not a
not be spoiled. Shut up.
it's not a spoiler. It's
It
not a
is a
spoiler.
spoiler. You're getting awfully close. You're getting into spoiler territory, and I don't want to
I
hear it.
just said who I used. I just said who I used.
Okay, well I
Uh,
don't know who that is. So what we're not gonna do is do that. So stop.
Regardless, I love Waterboy. I wouldn't disrespect him, but what I'm saying is, at what point do we get to overestimating our abilities? At what point are you in the way when you think you're helping?
Right. I don't know. I don't really get the question. Um, I'm a little distracted because they just wrote a new question. It's like, how do you know you can go in a battle thinking I can do this, but then when you get in battle, like you can't, you're dead. Well,
That's what I
no.
was talking about. It's the overestimation of your abilities. What happens when you have powers and you're like, oh, this is my calling. I'm supposed to go in here and help. And you go try to fight and you end up in the way. You're dead now. You didn't do nothing.
Um, Learn to know when to hold them, when to fold them, when. I'm sorry, but you gotta know when to hold them and know when to fold them. Learn when to run the fuck away if you're in danger. Like that's a you problem. I don't know. I don't know what else to say to you. If you can't judge when you're about to die, then that's a fucking you problem. Now, it's one thing if like you fly up and then and then you just die. Then all well. Sucks to suck. But you should be able to judge to after like once you start the fight or the battle, then you should have a good idea of the level of ass that you're about to absorb. So that is a you fucking problem. But what if One Punch Man was a villain and I'm thinking I could take him and pow? No. Um,
Listen, that was bad luck.
that's what I'm saying. You were screwed no matter what you did. If One Punch Man was a villain, there's nothing you could have did anyways.
Y'all better steal him in a weapon or something.
That's what I'm saying.
That's
You
what
better learn some ancient
some
witch
bull crap
technique. You better learn the fucking the Mafuba from Dragon Ball. like you, better, you, you better learn how to seal this motherfucker in quick. Like, there's nothing you can do.
His name is One Punch.
Exactly. It's like, what did you expect? That's like going up against a guy called Instant Death. It's like, wait a minute.
Why'd you go there?
Like this guy's name was Instant Death.
Like that's on you. The writing was on the wall. They wasn't trying to be secret or nothing.
Exactly. That is your fault. You should have sent Invincible. If we're going based off names. Yeah. Sorry for your luck. Any other questions? Whew. I'm sorry, that was funny.
I'm trying to scroll up to make sure we didn't miss anything, but I think for the most part we
Was
got
there
everything.
any,
I mean, besides giant spiders, but
Mod, was there any?
I think we've all established that if the aliens are giant spiders, no one's obligated to do anything. We can all just run away.
That's another thing that they were saying in the damn chat. It's like, my last statement: I will help in any way I can, but if it's a spider, count me out. Yeah, here's the thing. Like scientifically, spiders can't get above a certain size. But even if for some magical reason, let's say it was an alien spider, if you have a power that you can use from a distance, then just do it. It's like
Honestly,
if you had the power to like snipe a spider, I'm sure you would snipe spiders all day.
if
Especially if
it's
they're in
the
your house.
giants, if the threat is spiders, I think we can just consider it a zombie apocalypse situation where every man for themselves. No one's trying to stop the zombies for real. Everyone's just trying to get out. Is at that point, it's just every man for themselves. Do what you can to get out. Find a bunker. I don't know what to tell you, but yeah, no one's fighting no spiders.
No, that's the thing. It's all like I said about distance. If you had the power, let's say your only power was to shoot like psychic bullets, and you were 100% accurate, and there were spiders in your house, like just one, and you saw it on the wall across the room, you would not be scared. You would just on the wall, and you would just call it a day. You wouldn't be afraid
We're
if you could
talking
snipe it.
but we're talking about giant alien spiders. I'm thinking
Who
if
said anything
I'm
about
what
giant? I said Dalmatian.
they did. I'm saying if there are a colony of Rachna and Nursillas that are running the streets, I don't care if I got range because if that thing swings at me, I'm deceased. They didn't even hit the ground yet, and my soul has ascended.
Now hold on
I'm,
for a
I'm
second.
already at the gates. They haven't even touched me yet.
Now hold on for a second. Um, Nursillas are kind of a little. That's the thing. Some of those spider monsters are kind of adorable.
That's yeah, in a game, not in front of my. Have you ever, it's like that thing of like Pokemon are cute until someone draws them realistically, and I'm like, I'm not training that.
They do that on purpose. They over because that's not even how shit looks in real life. They could do the same thing with a dog and make the dog just look haggard and but it's like that's not even close to what they would actually look like. They're doing that on purpose. Especially in Monster Hunter where you have these things drawn somewhat realistically. It's not like they're going to be even uglier for some reason. It's not like they're drawn in an anime fashion.
They're definitely not cute though.
Um, there was an old TV show on Disney a long time ago in the 90s. And it had a Asian lady and a black guy with dreads. And they used to sing this song that I'm not going to sing. But it used to be like "So Long, Farewell," and then they sang a song and stuff like that. For the life of me, I can't remember what it's called. Mod.
That is not enough information to go off of.
Really early '90s Disney TV show with Asian and black guy. I could find it. I'm just saying.
All right. That's more information. Out of the box?
Yes, because it was about imagination and stuff like that. I think that's what it's called. Out of the box. Now I say all that just to tell you guys, it's it's time to go. I'd like to thank everybody for participating. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. I would like to thank Verzu for being my opponent this evening.
No problem.
And I would like to thank once again our mod Flair.
Thank you for having me, as always.
Yep. Make sure you guys follow me on all the social medias and also, subscribe on YouTube. That's where I post the VODs now. I don't even bother trying to get them to save on Twitch. I don't know how to do it. Maybe in the future. But right now you can just watch all the past VODs for the other episodes on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/CKingBanter. And yeah. Just make sure to follow and there should be. I'm gonna try to do these debates on Tuesdays and Fridays. So even if I don't post something because I'm a little bit busy or something like that, always tune in roughly about 6 o'clock on Tuesday or Friday, and there should be a debate going on. So, but I will try my best to kind of get everything posted ahead of time so you'll at least know the topic. But those are just rough general times. I'm going to try to be very consistent. So thanks everybody for watching. Make sure to, like I said, like, follow, and subscribe. And I will talk to you guys later.